just bring one of the best teams on, or yeah, one of the best teams around right now, which is, of course, once again, this Marco Fierro Sun team with the Jumpluff Torkoal, Charizard, Incineroar, Porygon 2, and Ursaluna. So much Charizard today, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a lot to say about it. The teams all look the same. We have the Terra fighting on the Porygon. We have the Terra Ghost and the Charizard, to like be immune to Fake Out. We have the Torkoal with the Eject Pack. We have seen it. Like there isn't really any differences here. The one thing that we could maybe point out is like we once again see a Citrus Berry and Incineroar. Like they run Citrus Berry, they don't run Safety Goggles, which means if there is an Among Us on Luca's team, there is a lot of things you can put to sleep. The Jumpluff, also standard, has Rage Powder. Sometimes they opt for Leaf Storm in order to have like a damaging option on the Jumpluff, so you're not just like sitting out in the open if you get taunted. You're not forced to struggle. You can do something. You can break Sashes since you're so fast. But this is the 4 support move Jumpluff. And yeah, there's not a lot to say to that. But let's talk about Matthew Henry for a little bit. Perth Regional Champion in 2024 and Melbourne Regional Top 4. So a really good player, right? They a regional champion basically, and they're going up against Luca Ceribelli, the current world champion, and that is going to be exciting. I'm excited to see what Luca is bringing here because I know it is not a Charizard.
I guess one more thing we can point out here is that, the Jumpluff in this case has Terra Fire, and the last one we saw did have Terra Water. Marco Fierro, he did bring 2 slightly different versions of this team to Gdansk and LAIC. Like the Torkoal here has Helping Hand, it used to have Clear Smog. The Charizard used to have, or it now has Air Slash Bet, and the Dragon Pulse it used to have in the past. So, there are slight changes, and, depending on what players who play this team prefer, they might, opt for different sets on those Pokemon. But yeah, let's take a look at Luca Ceribelli's team here, which is gonna be a Rillaboom, not with Assault Vest, but with Taunt and Miracle Seed, a Magmar, Annihilate, Goldengo, and an Ursaluna, but this time the Blood Moon version, and a Weavile.
Yeah, Weavile, not a Pokemon we see a lot. I think its Hisuian counterpart, the Sneasler, is making a lot more problems in this regulation. But with the Annihilate, Weavile, like I can see the uses, right? It is a very fast Pokemon. It has Beat Up, Stab Beat Up, that is, so it might do a lot more damage to your Annihilate than it wants to. But it also gets Fake Out. It has Pickpocket, which can be very interesting if you don't know how Pickpocket works. If the opponent loses an item, you don't have one, I think, then you can just take it. You just take the opponent's item.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Can be very impactful.
Especially since you're playing the Focus Sash, which, mostly on a frail Pokemon like Weavile gets to be activated. And yeah, usually with the Annihilate, we see Pokemon like maybe, Mousehold. We do know the classical Mouse Ape setup, but maybe the thing, with Mousehold, it does get access to things like Taunt and Follow Me support moves, but damage output wise, there really isn't much usually. And the Weavile can go for Fake Outs, which, could give you room for something like a Fake Out Bulk Up turn as well. Knockoff, always great. We saw it have a lot of use in the last best of 3. And of course, Icy Wind for speed control, also really great for a Pokemon like Annihilate or even Goldengo, really, It's also a great supporter in that sense.
Yeah, we've also seen the rise of the Ursaluna with the Assault Vest recently. Like, this Pokemon is very bulky. It has a lot of stats in its defenses, and so like what you can do is you can play the Assault Vest on it, make it even harder to remove on the special side, and then just like you just do a lot of damage with these strong moves like Blood Moon. You have the spread move, Hyper Voice, right? And you can also have a priority move in Vacuum Wave. And now Vacuum Wave is a fighting move. It can't really hit ghost types, but thanks to Mind's Eye, you suddenly hit Pokemon like Goldengo for super effective, and that is a lot of value.
I think it could also be great, to maybe get a KO on the Ursaluna on Matthew's side if it's already been damaged, and maybe even has like a special defense drop from a Headlong Rush that it's used already. That could, be an opportunity for Ursaluna to get that KO. Also, since, Matthew playing the Sun team with lots of fire moves, this Ursaluna can go for the Terra Dragon to resist those moves and take even less damage. But in this case, the Charizard, that sometimes plays Air Slash has the Dragon Pulse as well, so there's option for that as well. Yeah, we're gonna get into this first game in just a second. I am really curious to see what leads we will see, especially on Matthew's side, since, you know, with this team we've seen Jumpluff Torkoal be very popular. And for the first time here, we see the Charizard lead. I don't think we've actually seen the Charizard being led yet so far in this team, up against the Weavile and the Goldengo.
I'm not even sure if we saw a Charizard at all. I think this is the first time today that I see one. So we have Charizard Torkoal, a very, very threatening lead. There is the option for a Heat Wave, which will, like, it could knock out both Pokemon, or at least it could bring the Weavile to its Focus Sash. But like, what are you gonna do here, right? Are you going to risk? Like getting the Goldengo knocked out, or are you gonna Terra Water already? But then if you Terra, then you're weak to, like, you suddenly can get hit by other Pokemon, right? You can get hit by the Facade and stuff like that. So it's like, do you really want to Terra turn one, or is Luca gonna find a way to safely reposition here?
We are going to see a Terra here. You know, this Charizard does not have any speed control, so it risks maybe being fake outed or even knock off, you know, if it doesn't Terra or does Terra, but the Goldengo is going to go for that Terra Water here, so it's not weak to Fire Moves anymore. And yeah, there is a knockoff here from this Weavile onto the Charizard, does so much damage and knocks off this Choice Specs and brings the Weavile down to its Focus Sash, and the Goldengo, in combination with going for Terra and losing its, and Charizard losing its Choice Specs, takes that very nicely, goes for a Make It Rain and finishes this Charizard right off. And now this Torkoal will be able to get an attack off. Goldengo losing a little bit of special attack here. So maybe we see an overheat and, give it an opportunity to switch out. Yes, it is. That is going to do not quite enough damage for this Goldengo. I was wondering if that would knock it out, but nope, not quite. And now the Eject Pack is gonna let Matthew reposition here a little bit.
Yeah, maybe the Weavile dropped its Focus Sash and Goldengo picked it right up, because that was close to 1 HP survivals. But we can see that Matthew has the Porygon Ursaluna in the back, so there is a Trick Room mode. Maybe this Charizard lead was just there to break through the initial defenses that Luca has. But now we're gonna see. We see the Porygon, and since the Pokemon was knocked out, we can also see the reposition to, like, we can see a repositioning here for Matthew to just get your Ursaluna next to the Porygon, get up the Trick Room, and then start doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, and since this Goldengo now did not, set up a nasty plot, it just went for a Make It Rain, which, is very fair on Luca's side, but it's lost some power now, and, it could be very tricky or actually basically impossible for Luca to knock out this Porygon 2 here before it can get a Trick Room up. So this is like a very safe, protect Trick Room turn here for Matthew, potentially. The Weavile, it doesn't have Taunt or anything like that. It could go for knockoff and, then knock off the Eviolite, but Goldengo being at -1 means that this Make It Rain is going to do way less damage as well. And even if Goldengo does go for an attack, it's going to knock itself out because of the Life Orb recoil. So yeah, Luca, recognizing that, switches out into the Rillaboom here, which does get access to Fake Out, and also, of course, has things like Grassy Glide to maybe hit this Ursaluna later. And yeah, Ursaluna is going to go for a Protect here.
Yeah, we've seen the impact of what knockoff can do to an Ursaluna, but we see the knockoff into the Porygon, which means the Flame Orb stays on, but the Eviolite doesn't. This Porygon will take a lot more damage, might even get knocked out by a Wood Hammer, because this is a Miracle Seed Rillaboom. This is not the usual Assault Vest variant, because that is on the Ursaluna. And now this, I believe that maybe a Grassy Glide could also be enough. Like, Wood Hammer definitely is enough, but like Grassy Glide without the Eviolite could do some damage. The Ursaluna now, since there is the option for Fake Out, but since it's Terra Ghost Ursaluna, it's always risky to click Fake Out here. And yeah.
It looks unlikely that the Weavile could, still survive for a turn here, but there is a world where, the Ursaluna maybe goes for Terra Ghost to avoid Fake Outs, attacks the Rillaboom, and the Rillaboom may be going for Fake Out into the Porygon 2, and then the Weavile, has the window of opportunity to go for a knockoff into the Terra Ghost Ursaluna, and we are going to see a Terra here, this time on Matthew's side, is going to be that Ursaluna. So I'm curious to see if this Weavile sticks around, or if Matthew is just going to knock it out to be safe. Of course, you always have to respect that Wood Hammer on Miracle Seed Rillaboom as well is going to be a Fake Out on that Porygon 2. And Ursaluna is going for a Facade. into the Rillaboom, will knock it out. Now I'm really curious to see if we see a knockoff here from this Weavile. Yes, it is. That does so much damage onto that Ursaluna that just became a ghost type and is now weak to that move.
Yeah, but the knockoff wasn't enough. And the downside for having this Rillaboom on the field is now that the grassy terrain will keep this Ursaluna at a stable HP for like at least a few more turns, which means you buy yourself a little bit more time. And so despite this knockoff doing a lot of damage, you now have the Ursaluna still on the field. The problem is, as you mentioned earlier, as you already realized in the team sheet preview, this Vacuum Wave is a dangerous move now. This could actually knock out the Ursaluna.
Yeah, potentially, depending on how much special attack investment it maybe has and how defensive this Ursaluna is. I know, maybe on the Sun team, Ursalunas maybe just tend to go for very speedy sets, so they, of course, also have enough speed to outspeed things in Tailwind. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see if this Vacuum Wave could do enough. I think because it hasn't had any defense drops yet through any Headlong Rush, I think it only went for Facade so far. It probably isn't. But yeah, we're gonna have to see if that is the way this turn plays out. Ursaluna actually gonna go for a Protect here first. And yeah, the Ursaluna on Luca's side being Assault Vest means it's gonna take moves from the Porygon 2 very well. There was the Vacuum Wave right there, but is gonna go into that Protect. Ice Beam into this Ursaluna. Still a good amount of damage, and a knockoff also into the Ursaluna. It's just gonna double that up.
Yeah, but now I think now Matthew with this Ice Beam made sure that whatever move they click on the next turn, the Ursaluna will get knocked out and the Weavile right after. The question is, will you get the move out? Because we see the burn does a little bit of chip damage to the Ursaluna. The grassy terrain recovers it again, so there is no change in HP, right? There is like the basic idea is that if you're protecting grassy terrain, you can recover some HP. And then you can like maybe survive the move on next turn, but the Flame Orb doesn't allow your Ursaluna to recover. So now it comes down to whether the Vacuum Wave, which isn't a strong move, but whether the Vacuum Wave will do the job.
Yeah, that little bit of HP that ended more on the Ursaluna, it looks like it could be in Vacuum Wave range, I would guess. But we're gonna have to wait and see. The Goldango switching in here for the Weavile, so can get a fake out later. And Vacuum Wave's not gonna be enough. So yeah, that just shows how important those defense drops on Headlong Rush are for that calc. Goldango gonna go down here. Probably wouldn't have had much value anyway, since, it could have gotten one more move before going down to Life Orb. So maybe Luca deciding in this situation would rather have another fake out on the Weavile. And Facade is just gonna take out this Blood Moon, Assault Vest, Ursaluna here, and yeah, I think that means Luca has lost 3 of his Pokemon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was also just counting how many Pokemon Luca still has left. There was like, I was like, okay, the Rillaboom is gone, the Weavile is gone, the Weavile just switched out. We saw 2 Pokemon go down this turn, so that means there is only a Weavile against the world. It does have a spread move, but it's unfortunately only Icy Wind, so I don't think there's a lot Luca can do, and Matthew is taking... It's very likely to take this first set against the current reigning world champion.
Yeah, and I think you were right when you said in the beginning the Charizard was really just there to maybe poke some holes into Luca's team, because that damage onto the Weavile and also the Goldango I think was really, really important. And even with it just brought Matthew into a position where Luca, even if he got certain reads correctly, like going for that knockoff into the Ursaluna, it didn't really help him get into a winning position at all, as we saw now in this endgame. Like, Matthew is in a very, very commanding spot here. And so Luca will have to adjust something in the second game, because that lead, like, from Matthew's side was really, really strong and just helped him set up that Trick Room and Ursaluna perfectly.
Yeah, this is the power of Charizard, right? There wasn't even a Terra. There was no Terra Ghost to prevent a fake out or anything. Math just went for the Heat Wave, and it paid off because the Goldango was low because it took the Eruption, it took the Heat Wave. So Goldango couldn't do anything anymore in the end game. You just lost both your Pokemon, or almost both your Pokemon, and then all Matthew had to do is get through this Ursaluna to just clean up the game because everything else was low.
The Rillaboom, who does run Taunt on this set, just came in when the Trick Room was already set up, so Luca couldn't prevent that anymore. And as you mentioned, that a Miracle Seed Rillaboom is nothing to underestimate, but it wasn't able to do anything aside from go for one fake out, which didn't give Luca a lot of value. And who knows, maybe if there would have been a Grassy Glide, like you mentioned, then the Vacuum Wave could have gotten that knockout on the Ursaluna. So, a few turns played differently there on Luca's side could have also had this game go in a very different direction. But if you decide to go for like the Rillaboom lead approach, you need to, of course, respect the Incineroar, which has Terra Ghost, so you can also not safely fake out it. But you could maybe lead the Annihilate, which of course has Defiant, you don't want to intimidate an Annihilate. There are definitely options there.
But do you really want to lead Rillaboom into a Charizard is the question. There is still a strong and scary fire type waiting for you, but I think we'll see how both players will adjust. We'll just jump right into game 2 and we'll see how Luca maybe adjusts, or if the Charizard is just enough to just poke holes through Luca's team and just take the win.
Weavile and Goldengo lead once more up against this time Incineroar and Porygon 2. So yeah, maybe this time Matthew deciding to go for a little bit more careful approach here and maybe try to safely set up this Trick Room. And this also means, okay, the Goldengo here is, very threatened by this Incineroar, of course. And the Weavile, although it can go for a fake out here and maybe even some knockoffs, knock off that Eviolite once again. There's not really a lot of damage output here on Luca's side yet. Even after a nasty plot, it cannot hit this Incineroar super effective in any way, and neither can the Weavile.
Yeah, the Incineroar definitely can do whatever it wants this turn. I mean, there's always the option for a fake out, so it can't really move. But we see the Terra Water and the Goldengo. I think Luca decided once again that this is the Pokemon that needs to stay alive. This is the Pokemon that I need to keep around. We see the fake out into the Porygon. And now we might see a Nasty Plot, yes! Nasty Plot from Goldengo, which means +2. And the knockoff won't really do a lot because it's Terra'd out of its Ghost typing.
Yeah, the knockoff here is getting rid of that Life Orb. But there is now the potential to go for a knockoff and make it rain next turn.
Yeah, that also is true. Like, you can knock off and you can make it rain. The knockoff comes out first. The Porygon doesn't really have its bulk anymore, as we see that. And the question is, will the Make It Rain be enough to take out the Porygon here? We see the +2 Make It Rain into the Porygon without Eviolite. That is definitely enough. Yeah,
didn't need the Life Orb, and I'm guessing Luca knew that okay, he might lose the Life Orb here from the knockoff, but if he can get rid of the Eviolite as well, then he can knock off that Porygon too, no problem. As the Incineroar here goes for that parting shot, lowers the attack on the Weavile, probably not going to care too much about that. So Goldengo in a really, really nice spot here.
Yeah, and now we can also see why Luca let these Pokemon in game 1, right? Because this is really good into Porygon. Because you can knock it off, you can then make it rain, because you can freely set up, unless there is a fake out from the Incineroar, but do you really want to fake out a Ghost type, right? So a lot of calls, but it's just like now the game looks very in favor of Luca, at least because the strong Trick Room setter has been removed, and now there's no way to get it up.
Yeah, and I think that is really important when facing off against the Sun team. I've said a few times, in my opinion, it just really, really needs that form of speed control. Doesn't have that here anymore. We saw the Torkoal is in the back. That's also not going to have any Trick Room. The Goldengo is going to go for a Protect here. Very safe against the Fake Out. Very fair. Weavile is going to take that Fake Out. It does not have Protect. But I think even if the Weavile goes down here, which it does, double up into that slot. So Matthew recognizing that, okay, this Pokemon cannot Protect, I'm just going to double it and, get a Facade. But I think Luca was correct in just letting it go down and not switch it out. And, just so whatever he has in the back doesn't take a Facade here from this Ursaluna.
Yeah, and now we see the Ursaluna on Luca's side. This we already know, like, this Pokemon can do a lot of damage. Like, it has the Blood Moon. It is not the Terra Normal Life Orb set. It is Assault Vest. Usually they run a little bit less investment in attack, so they have, like, in favor of bulk, of special bulk. And so what that means is that, like, well, usually a Blood Moon could knock out a Pokemon here. Maybe right now it can't, and so this could be a turn where Matthew can make some adjustments, switch around a little bit, reposition, and like then force this Ursaluna to like off the field.
I think still get the knockout on the Incineroar here, and I think that's a very safe target right now since it cannot go for a Protect. This Gholdengo also still has +1, so yeah, there's another Make It Rain here, and now this Incineroar is definitely in range of not just a Blood Moon, but I believe also just a Hyper Voice. And yeah, Gholdengo, or actually, yeah, there is the Citrus Berry, I forgot about that, so Incineroar is going to recover a little bit of health, so at this point you do still need the Blood Moon, but this should get the knockout on this Incineroar. Critical hit did not matter at this point, and now it is just the Ursaluna and Torkoal without Trick Room up against Luca's Gholdengo and Ursaluna, and the Gholdengo, you know, is at neutral special attack right now. It went for 2 Make It Rains, but before that, of course, it did set up the Nasty Plot.
There is still a way for Matthew to get this out, right? Because it's win this, because there's still a Terra. I think if you can knock out one of these two Pokemon right now, if you call this correctly, maybe Luca gets greedy with a Nasty Plot, maybe you can bring it back. But like, we see the Protect from the Torkoal. This is very safe because Earth Power could knock it out. We see the Make It Rain, and there won't be a Blood Moon this turn because the Blood Moon was used to knock out the Incineroar. So Ursaluna has to go for either Earth Power, Hyper Voice. Gholdengo lowering its special attack even more. Blood Moon, like the Hyper Voice comes out. The question is, will this knock out the Ursaluna? Will the Facade knock out the Ursaluna?
It does not. Barely misses that KO. And I think, you know, on the side, you know, Luca's side, probably calced for that Facade or for the Ursaluna to live that. At least it looks like that. But just Make It Rain and Hyper Voice, really safe in that position, you know, has the speed advantage. And even if one of these Pokemon protects, doesn't matter at that point. So yeah, really great adjustments there by Luca, recognizing that, okay, you know, if the Porygon 2 lead comes out, I can perhaps just knock it out if I get rid of that Eviolite. You know, Porygon 2 is known to tank a lot of moves, thanks to that item in particular, and without it, it just becomes so much less bulky.
Yeah, we also didn't see the Rillaboom, right? I believe we saw the Weavile, the Ursaluna, Gholdengo, and Rillaboom. No, wait, and Ursaluna.
We didn't see the third Pokemon, I think, yeah.
Yeah, there was one Pokemon that we didn't see, so it's like 3 Pokemon. The Ursaluna did a good job. Like, if there is no Trick Room, you can basically just use your speed advantage and just go through the opposing team. Like, I think even if the last Pokemon would have been a Rillaboom, what is Ursaluna gonna do, right? What is it really gonna do? It doesn't have a priority move, because that would have been nice in the end. But it doesn't get Vacuum Wave like its counterpart. And so like this is interesting, like, because the Charizard mode worked, but then Matthew decided to switch it up, and then suddenly Luca's lead looked so good into the other team, like into Matthew's team. And now the question is, will Matthew go back to the first lead, or maybe just like stick to the Trick Room mode and play it a little differently?
I mean, to be like, there were enough options on Luca's side to, you know, tank a lead Charizard's Heat Wave, you know, things like, you know, has a lot of good defensive Terras against it, and the Ursaluna, you know, being like Terra Drang and Assault Vest means that could have been an option. So I don't blame Matthew for, you know, a more careful approach in the game 2, and in game 3 decides to go for that same approach again, and Luca once again, for the third time now, leading the Weavile and the Gholdengo. Has been 2 different game plans so far though, so we'll see what happens in this game.
Yeah, well, like, the first 2 turns can play out the same way, right? There could be a Terra from the Gholdengo, there could be a knockoff into Gholdengo, but if you play it the very same way, will it actually work? Because like, all Pokemon can Terra, there's a lot of fake out immunities. We see the Rillaboom going in, so that already means that the Gholdengo won't have the Nasty Plot set up. But we see the Fake Out going into the Porygon, making sure it doesn't set up Trick Room. We see the knockoff, and now the Rillaboom doesn't have Miracle Seed anymore, which means it will do a lot less damage.
Yeah, but I really like this first turn from Luca, because he's once again trying to prevent the Trick Room, but this time in a different way, since, you know, he's not 100% certain if Matthew's gonna fall for that Fake Out Nasty Plus setup again. Matthew did go for Fake Out again, but Luca switching in the Rillaboom here means that now, you know, the Porygon, it couldn't do anything because of Weavile's Fake Out, and now Rillaboom could go either for another Fake Out or just go for a Taunt and then prevent the Trick Room from going up at all. And now Luca can bring in his own Ursaluna and, you know, maybe dish out some more damage onto both of these Pokemon on Matthew's side.
Yeah, the taunt, like deciding not to go for like a wood hammer and like a knockoff into the Porygon. So the Porygon still has its item that makes it so strong. When we see the taunt from the Rillaboom to prevent the Trick Room, Incin goes for the parting shot to lower the Ursaluna's attack, probably predicting the switch in, but also like reducing Weavile's damage can't hurt. And now we see the Terra Blast from Porygon into the Ursaluna, which won't do a lot, but still some good chip damage. And with the Charizard on the field now, Shota, I think we're in for a treat.
Yeah, yeah, especially since, although there is the Terra Dragon option for Luca, this Porygon, of course, has Ice Beam, which would hit it super effective either way if it Terras or not. And I really like that Matthew still went for that parting shot, because even though the Weavile, which was the original target, doesn't do so much damage, if it switches into something that is a dangerous damage dealer, especially if you don't have Trick Room, that lowering of the special attack in this case is definitely going to come in handy. And here now a switch on Matthew side into the Torkoal, so the Charizard can easily go for a powerful fire move here onto both of these targets. And we are going to see a Terra here. Not sure what side that is on right now. It is the Ursaluna going for the Dragon Terra, so will resist any fire moves that come here from the Charizard, but it does get a little bit of a boost from the sun.
Yeah, the question is why? Because we see the Weather Ball from the Charizard, right? But the question is, this won't do a lot because this Ursaluna can always tear out of it. We see the Blood Moon coming back as a return, and the Charizard does survive, but we now know it is in knockoff range. The question is, why not the Heat Wave, right? Because both Pokemon cannot Terra. So maybe Matthew was afraid of just like missing a Heat Wave because it would have done a lot of damage to this Weavile.
Yeah, also to the Rillaboom, which was the original, Pokemon that was out. So that of course could have also been a safe target, but perhaps Matthew wanted to get a good amount of damage onto this Ursaluna safely, because that is the biggest damage dealer right now. As we said, the Weavile not that threatening in terms of dealing damage, and also the Rillaboom having only grass moves. Your fire types resist that. And the Porygon 2 coming in here now is also going to be nice against this Ursaluna. The knockoff here is going to knock off that Citrus Berry, so no recovery for it this turn. Earth Power, it is -1 special attack, so will not get the KO, but that should be maybe at -1. I don't know if that's in Vacuum Wave range. I'm going to say it's going to be close.
Yeah, but no matter what, now the Porygon can go for, like, the Fake Out Trick Room turn is online. Like, the Incineroar crucially survived this double up, which means Fake Out Trick Room is a very valid play, and we saw that Luca struggled to get through Trick Room earlier. So you cannot ignore this Incineroar because it can just Flare Blitz your Pokemon, because now that the Terra is gone, everything next to the Ursaluna can get Flare Blitz. So the question is, once Trick Room is up, how do you stall it long enough to get through? Because now you also lose the Sash on the Weavile.
Yeah, and another Earth Power here is going to take out this Incineroar, but this is just going to give Porygon an option to set up Trick Room, and then Matthew bring in, one of his sweepers. There's the Trick Room setup, and we saw, he still has the, I believe it was the Ursaluna in the back, and maybe also the Torkoal. Actually don't.
No, it was Charizard. It was Charizard.
Yeah.
Charizard and Torkoal are waiting in the back, so there's no Ursaluna. Maybe that's why Luca was so confident in like just clicking, just knocking out both Pokemon, and maybe that, or like just taking the Incineroar and not damaging the Porygon at all, because maybe now the Vacuum Wave is enough to get the Ursaluna out of range. Like maybe the Vacuum Wave and then combined with like some damage from the Weavile could do something. But I don't think AV is enough to survive Eruption and Ice Beam.
Yeah, no, I would guess it's not, at least not without like a light screen, as I am used to when playing this Pokemon, and even with it's going to be tough. So yeah, the Rillaboom is going to switch in here now, so Luca probably expecting this Pokemon to go down through an Eruption here. We are going to see a Terra here. It's probably going to be that Torkoal going for that Fire Terra. Yeah, Trick Room is set up perfectly, so this is just an ideal situation for this Pokemon to dish out as much damage as it possibly can. Even with the Assault Vest and the Terra Dragon, I'm guessing this Ursaluna is still going to take a very, very good amount of damage. And is not going to quite be enough for the KO, but as you just said, the Ice Beam should finish off this Ursaluna.
Yeah, this Ursaluna also not going for a Vacuum Wave. Maybe Luca is hoping that there is a survival, but we see the Ice Beam coming out. This is not going to be enough. This P2 is here to play, takes out the Ursaluna, and with that, there is only a Weavile and a Goldengo left. The question
that is tricky.
Yeah, the question is how you're gonna get through this, right? Trick Room was just set up. There's like at least 2 more turns left. Maybe it might also just be 3 turns. I'm not really sure. And all of your Pokemon are in range of Eruption. I don't know how you're gonna get through this.
Yeah, no, this is going to be very tough, and goes to show, you know, if Luca had gone for the same turn 1 he did in game 2, then he would have been in the same situation where, you know, the Goldengo has a +2 special attack boost, and the Porygon did not get to set up the Trick Room yet, and you could have doubled it. But maybe, you know, Luca thinking, okay, going for the same play again is too obvious, and Matthew's probably going to be expecting that. And Matthew may be expecting Luca to think exactly that, and thinking, okay, maybe this time this turn is going to work out better for me. And now, yeah, played around the Trick Room prevention really well. Torkoal is going to get faked out here. But yeah, went for the helping hand, predicting that correctly, and then Porygon 2 just gets to knock out Weavile easy.
Yeah, now the Torkoal doesn't get to move. It has to take a Shadow Ball, which does a lot of damage. So maybe, just maybe, depending on how many Trick Room turns there are, we can see this Goldengo survive the Trick Room. But guess what, Shona? There's a Charizard waiting in the back.
Yeah, there's a Charizard waiting in the back, and also... Okay, the interesting thing is that the Porygon 2 still has is full health, so technically if the Trick Room runs out, can set that up again. Matthew actually gonna switch out the Porygon 2 here. The thing is that if it technically comes down to like a Porygon 2 and Goldengo endgame, this Porygon 2 is not gonna do a lot of damage with Ice Beam, and the Goldengo can set up Nasty Plot, of course. But yeah, it is just gonna be an overheat here, no protect on Luca's side, a critical hit just to add insult to injury. And that is our reigning world champion defeated by Matthew Henry.
Charizard is